Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
All right, so Boeing, huh? Seems like they've been making quite a few headlines lately, and not the good kind.
Yeah, not exactly the kind of publicity you want when you're, building airplanes.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We're talking whistleblowers, safety concerns, even a door flying off a plane mid-flight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's enough to make anyone nervous about flying.
It really does raise questions about what's going on over there at Boeing. What's happening with their safety protocols? Is everything okay?
Yeah, that's what we're here to figure out. We've got a whole stack of articles and reports, and we're going to deep dive into all of it. So by the end of this, you'll have a much better understanding of what's going on with this aviation giant.
Sounds like a plan. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start with the timeline, because this isn't just one isolated incident. We're looking at a pattern of troubling events.
Right. It's a whole series of events that have been unfolding over years, actually.
Okay, so rewind back to 2018 and 2019. That's when we had those two horrific Boeing 737 MAX crashes.
Yeah, those were devastating. 346 lives lost, and the entire MAX fleet was grounded worldwide. It was a huge blow to Boeing.
Absolutely. I mean, those crashes really shook the entire aviation industry. And they put Boeing's safety practices under intense scrutiny.
Rightfully so. I mean, the investigations that followed revealed some serious issues with the design of the aircraft and with Boeing's internal processes.
And fast forward to January of this year, a brand new 737 MAX loses a door mid-flight shortly after takeoff.
Oh, wow. Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. Luckily, no one was injured. But can you imagine the panic on that plane?
I can't even imagine. That's terrifying.
It is. And what's even more concerning is that the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, concluded that the cause was missing bolts.
Missing bolts on a brand new plane.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, right?
Aye.
I mean, after the MAX crashes, you'd think they'd be extra careful about quality control.
You would think so.
Yeah.
This incident definitely raised red flags about whether Boeing had actually learned from their past mistakes.
And the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, they weren't taking this lightly either. They launched audits of both Boeing and one of their main suppliers, Spirit Aerosystems.
So the FAA is stepping in now.
Yeah, they were clearly concerned. These audits happened between February and March, and they uncovered even more quality control problems.
It's like every time they look, they find something else.
Exactly. It's a really troubling pattern. And then in April, things escalated even further. A Boeing quality engineer, a guy named Sam Salahpour, he testifies before Congress.
This is the whistleblower, right?
Yeah, the whistleblower. And he basically drops a bombshell. He claims that Boeing is putting profits ahead of safety and intentionally ignoring concerns about defective planes.
Wow, that's a serious accusation. To go public like that, he must have felt strongly about it.
He did. He specifically called out the 787 and 777 aircraft, saying they were using excessive force to align sections of the planes during assembly.
And what does that do? Why is that a problem?
Well, it creates gaps. Gaps that are larger than safety standards allow songs. Salahpour said he was told to shut up when he raised these concerns, and was even prevented from properly documenting the issues.
So they tried to silence him?
It seems that way. It turns out Salahpour wasn't the only one raising concerns about Boeing's practices.
There were other whistleblowers too?
Yeah, there were other whistleblowers too who shared similar worries, especially about the 787 Dreamliner. And get this, two former Boeing employees who had also raised concerns about the 787 program actually died under some pretty suspicious circumstances.
Whoa, hold on. They died.
Yeah, they died.
Okay.
And while there's no direct evidence linking their deaths to their whistleblowing, the timing and the nature of their deaths are definitely, they're definitely raising eyebrows.
That's disturbing. It adds a whole other layer to this whole Boeing saga.
It does. So you've got a whistleblower testifying before Congress, you've got other whistleblowers dying under mysterious circumstances, and you've got the FAA uncovering all these quality control issues. It's a lot.
It's a lot, and it definitely puts Boeing in a very tough spot. I mean, how do they respond to all of this?
Well, Boeing issued a statement defending their planes, saying that millions of passengers fly on the 787 and 777 every year without any problems.
So they're standing by their product.
Yeah, they are. They also tried to downplay those gaps that Salahpour was talking about, comparing them to the width of a human hair.
A human hair? Seriously?
Yeah, don't worry, it's just a tiny little gap. But I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but a human hair-sized gap at 35,000 feet doesn't exactly sound reassuring to me.
Yeah, I'd be a little concerned too. You know, even small things can have big consequences when you're talking about airplanes.
And Salahpour actually had a pretty powerful response to that human hair comparison. He said, when operating at 35,000 feet, the size of the human hair can be a matter of life and death.
That's a pretty stark way to put it.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong.
No, he's not. So the FAA, they weren't buying Boeing's attempts to downplay these issues either.
So they weren't just going to let it slide.
Nope, they actually got more aggressive. They halted Boeing's plans to expand production, they increased the number of on-site inspectors at Boeing factories, and they demanded that Boeing come up with a detailed corrective action plan.
Wow, so they're really cracking down.
Yeah, they're sending a very clear message that they're not messing around with safety.
It seems like the FAA is losing trust in Boeing's ability to self-regulate.
I think that's a fair assessment. So that's where we are right now, a company facing serious safety concerns, multiple whistleblowers, and a federal agency breathing down their neck.
It's not a pretty picture.
No, it's not. And the question is, what happens next? Can Boeing recover from this? Can they regain the trust they've lost?
Those are the big questions, and we're going to explore those questions in more depth in the rest of this deep dive.
Exactly. We're just getting started.
It's a lot to unpack, that's for sure.
It is. So we've got this timeline, but what's at the core of all this? I mean, how does a company like Boeing, a company that builds these incredibly complex machines, how do they end up with these serious safety concerns?
Well, it's complicated. There's no simple answer. Some experts point to a shift in Boeing's corporate culture, something that started happening years ago.
What kind of shift?
Well, there's been this increasing focus on cost-cutting, on keeping those production lines moving, and some say it might have come at the expense of safety.
So profits over people.
That's a concern that's been raised, yeah, especially by those whistleblowers. They've said there's a real culture of fear inside Boeing.
Fear of what? Speaking up.
Exactly. They say employees are discouraged from raising concerns, even about safety, because they're afraid of what might happen to them, retaliation.
That's scary. I mean, imagine working on these planes, knowing there could be an issue, but being too afraid to say anything.
It's a recipe for disaster, and that's what some people believe happened with the 737 MAX.
Yeah, the investigations into those crashes were pretty damning. They found a whole chain of failures with the design of the plane, with the software, with how pilots were trained. It was a mess.
A real wake-up call for the whole industry. Those crashes really brought to light what can happen when a company starts prioritizing speed and efficiency over safety and thoroughness.
It's tragic that it took those crashes to expose these problems. 346 lives lost.
Absolutely tragic, and it's why everyone's watching so closely now to see if Boeing's really learned from this.
So what have they done? Have they made any changes to address all of this?
They have. They've put in place new safety procedures, they're doing more training for employees, and they've restructured how they handle engineering and safety oversight.
Sounds like they're trying to turn things around,
Yeah.
but is it enough? Have they really tackled those deeper cultural issues?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Only time will tell. There are still a lot of people out there, especially experts in the field, who are pretty skeptical.
Understandably so. I mean, it's hard to just forget about all those safety issues, right?
Right.
Trust is earned, not given.
Exactly. Boeing's got a lot of work to do if they want to regain that trust. They need to show, not just say, that safety comes first, that they're putting it above everything else.
So how do they do that? What would that actually look like?
Well, transparency would be a good start. Being really open and honest with regulators, with the public, about any problems that come up.
No more sweeping things under the rug.
No more sweeping. They also need to create a culture where people can speak up without fear.
Easier said than done, though, right?
Definitely not easy, but it's essential. And not just for Boeing, for any company in a high-stakes industry like aviation.
And speaking of the aviation industry, this whole situation with Boeing, it's not just affecting them, right? There are ripple effects.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
impacting airlines, suppliers, the whole economy, really.
We talked about Ryanair earlier. They're already warning about higher ticket prices because Boeing's deliveries are delayed.
Right. Airlines are having to scramble to get the planes they need, and that can mean less choice and higher costs for passengers.
It's a domino effect.
It is, and it goes beyond airlines, too. Suppliers who rely on Boeing for their business, they're hurting, too. Some have had to lay off workers or cut back on production because Boeing's not ordering as much.
So it's an economic hit, too.
Yeah, a big one. It really shows how interconnected everything is. When a giant like Boeing stumbles, everyone feels it.
It makes you realize just how much we depend on companies like Boeing to keep things running smoothly.
For sure. And it highlights why accountability and transparency are so crucial in an industry like aviation.
Okay, so we've talked about the internal culture of Boeing, the impact on the whole industry, the economic side of things. But what about the people who actually build these planes? The workers, the engineers, the mechanics. They must be under a lot of pressure,
You're absolutely right. They're the ones on the front lines, and we can't forget about them.
especially if they're feeling pressured to cut corners or to not report problems. That's a huge concern.
It is. If you have a culture where people are afraid to speak up, mistakes can happen, problems can be missed, and ultimately safety is at risk.
So, what can be done to protect those workers and make sure they feel safe raising concerns?
It starts with creating a work environment where they feel valued, where they feel respected, and where they know they won't be punished for speaking up.
That sounds good, but how do you actually do that?
Well, you need strong whistleblower protections, clear policies that everyone understands. You need to train managers and supervisors on how to foster open communication.
So it's about changing the culture from the top down, but also giving workers the tools they need to speak up safely.
Exactly. It's about making sure everyone feels responsible for safety and that everyone has a voice.
I like that. So after hearing all this, I'm feeling a little pessimistic, I gotta say. Is there any reason to think Boeing can really turn things around?
It's tough, I won't sugarcoat it. They've got a lot of work ahead of them, a lot of trust to rebuild.
But you think they can do it?
I wouldn't say it's impossible. Boeing's been around a long time. They've faced challenges before. They've got a lot of talented people. They're still an industry leader.
So they have the potential. But what needs to happen?
They need a real change in mindset. They need to make safety their absolute top priority and prove that they're doing it, not just talking about it.
Show, don't tell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need to be open and honest about their problems, and they need to make sure their employees feel safe speaking up.
It sounds like a tall order.
It is, but the alternative is not acceptable, not in an industry like this. The stakes are too high.
I agree. So what do you think the future holds for Boeing? Can they overcome all this, or are they going to keep struggling?
That's the big question, isn't it? No one really knows for sure. But one thing's for certain, the choices they make right now will determine their fate.
So it's a make or break moment for them.
It really is.
Yeah.
If they're willing to make those changes, to truly embrace a safety-first culture, they've got a chance to come back stronger.
And if they don't?
Then they risk becoming a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when a company loses sight of what matters most.
Well, that's pretty sobering.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what happens. It's definitely a story that's not over yet.
Not by a long shot. This is just the beginning.
So we've talked about all the problems, all the missteps. But is there any hope for Boeing? Can they actually pull themselves out of this nosedive?
It's a tough one, no question about it. The damage is done, the trust is broken. It's not going to be easy to fix that.
But you're saying it's not impossible?
I wouldn't write them off just yet. Boeing's got a lot of history behind them, a lot of experience, a lot of smart people. They're still a major force in aviation.
Okay, so they have the potential, but what does a turnaround even look like? Where do they even start?
Well, it all comes down to a few key things. And number one, gotta be safety. They have to prove beyond any doubt that safety is their absolute top priority.
But we've heard that before, right? Safety first, it's easy to say.
Yeah, but this time it has to be more than just words. It has to be baked into everything they do, every decision, every process, every level of the company.
So how do you change a whole company culture like that? That's not a quick fix.
No, it's a long haul, but it starts with real, concrete actions, like giving their engineers and safety experts the power to make decisions based on what's safest, not just what's cheapest or fastest.
And what about those whistleblowers? The ones who spoke up and paid the price?
That can't happen again. Boeing has to create an environment where people feel safe coming forward, where they know they won't be punished for raising concerns.
So strong whistleblower protections,
Yeah.
that's got to be a top priority.
Absolutely essential. If they want to prevent future problems, they need people to feel comfortable pointing out potential issues no matter what.
And being transparent about those issues.
Right.
No more hiding things.
Transparency is key. Right now, there's a lot of skepticism around Boeing. They need to be open and honest about any problems that come up, show that they're not trying to sweep things under the rug.
So it's all about rebuilding that trust.
Exactly. Trust is everything in this industry. They need to earn it back, and that takes time. It takes consistent action.
Okay, so safety, transparency, regaining trust. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's all about fixing the past, right? What about the future? Where does Boeing go from here?
Well, they can't just be playing catch-up. They need to be innovating, pushing the boundaries. They have to be leaders, not followers.
So new technologies, more efficient designs, staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly. They need to show the world that they're still at the forefront of aviation, that they're shaping the future, not just reacting to the past.
But while they're dealing with all these problems, aren't their competitors taking advantage?
Oh, absolutely. Airbus is already benefiting from Boeing's struggles. And you've got new players emerging like Comac in China who are hungry for a piece of the market.
So it's a really crucial moment for Boeing. They're facing challenges from all sides.
It's a true test. They need to figure out how to regain that trust, how to out-innovate their rivals, how to rebuild their image. It's a defining moment.
It's a lot to overcome.
Mm.
So what do you think? Can they do it? Can they pull through?
It's hard to say. Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure. The decisions they make right now will determine their future.
So it's a make or break moment for them.
It really is. And the whole world's watching to see what happens.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, haven't we? From those tragic crashes to whistleblowers to the challenges facing the entire aviation industry.
It's a complex story with a lot of moving parts. But I think we've given our listeners a good understanding of what's going on with Boeing and what the stakes are.
And more importantly, I think this story raises some bigger questions, questions that go beyond just one company.
Absolutely. It's about accountability, about corporate responsibility, about the importance of putting safety above all else.
And about what it takes to rebuild trust once it's been broken. That's a lesson that applies to all of us, no matter what industry we're in or what role we play in society.
Well said.
So that wraps up our deep dive into Boeing, a story that's still unfolding, with a lot of uncertainty about what the future holds.
But it's a story worth paying attention to, because the choices Boeing makes will have ripple effects throughout the world.
And for you, our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought. We encourage you to keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the world around you.
Because knowledge is power, and the more we understand about these complex issues, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions and to shape a better future.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, and until next time, stay curious.
Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.